it's Drybear. We finished out our Haley theory crafting, so I wanted to come back to Sharen and finish her out as well. And today, I want to talk about a really fun hybrid DPS build I've been working on that works great in all parties, pug parties, and works kind of like an Enzo where you make your party better while also doing a fair share of your own damage. This one I'm going to call Corrosion Sharen, and it focuses on using battlesuit melting rounds. As I go through the Descendants and make builds for them, I'd like to make at least one build for each of their Transcendent modules, and today we're working on a build for battlesuit melting rounds. So what this module does is it grabs her stun projectile and makes it shred 40% of the target's defense and 40% of the target's electric resistance. We're going to increase that further by using Nazastra's Devotion for another 10% defense and using Excava for another 10% electric damage, and all three of our weapons have electric damage on them. So we can actually shred a large majority of their defense and electric resistance and do tons of damage, and then we just focus on Veteran Marksman as a build with high defense and survivability. We make everyone else in the party do more damage, and that damage I think gets credited to the support player. So when a support player makes everyone do more, the more that gets added is because of the Corrosion Sharen you have in your party, on top of using very strong builds. And this is actually the only build that I've been able to fit Excava and Executor in, because they have such high electric damage and electric shred. You're gonna get so much electric damage on top of this, and the target, if they have any electric resistance, is just gonna be melted away along with their defense. And aside from that, it is a very straightforward build. It functions like a gun platform build, so we're focused on using our weapons, and all you really need to do out of Sharen's kit with this is just use your third ability. It's no longer an AoE stun when it comes out and stuns targets. You get an additional charge of it, so you have 2 charges of it, but you'll see here, when I activate it, it creates this giant dome, and any targets in the dome will get a debuff applied to them that removes 40% of their defense plus 40% of their electric resistance. So again, everyone in the party that's doing any damage, as well as any electric damage, is going to keep doing more damage that way. Now, the footage you see, I do not have my Excava maxed out. I don't have my Executor maxed out, so that my damage output is going to be quite low because I haven't invested in those particular weapons, because honestly, I can't see another build that I would use those weapons in besides this one. But it's such a fun build to be able to make all of your party members stronger while also dealing a bunch of damage yourself, and it makes these builds shine because you have big electrocution damage from the Executor, which you can switch to and burst out, and you also have a big electric grenade that you can shoot out from the Excava that allows you to do a bunch of burst damage in a row, and they all feed off of each other. And when you need to, you can switch over to Nazastra's, shred even more defense for your targets, and completely burn down the boss or the target. Now, on this one, you could swap out the Nazastra's Devotion for whatever you want. I think the extra defense shred is useful here, but you could swap it. But for this build specifically, I am going to recommend Excava and Executor. You could run like an Enduring Legacy with electric enhancement on it, or even like a Python with electric enhancement on it, but I think there's so much synergy between the Excava and the Executor and battlesuit melting rounds that all of it works so beautifully together. On top of that, this is the best time to use the Excava because we actually do have an Excava related seasonal buff. So on the inversion reinforcement, if you go down to the season level, 3 nodes in, you have electric displacement field. All this says is that when you get to 3 stacks of the Excava mods, once you have 3 stacks of it, for the next 2 seconds, you will increase your firearm attack by 35%, which means that as soon as you hit 3 charges, you can ADS and launch your energy grenade, and it'll have 35% increased firearm attack for that grenade, which makes the burst opportunity really strong. So you want to make sure you're running this displacement or this reinforcement for the season if you're going to be using the Excava for this build. Now let's take a look at what we're actually doing, all the moving parts of this build. Your shot, your third ability here, normally looks like this. It is a projectile that will shoot out and stun targets in the area, and you have 1 single charge of it. However, if you equip the Battlesuit Melting Rounds module, which you'll be able to equip here, it gives you an extra stack of the ability and decreases the enemy's electric resistance instead of stunning them. Now, it says only electric resistance on this. It's a pretty poor translation, I guess, because not only does it do electric resistance, but it also does defense, and both of those by default are a 40% shred, which is easily one of the biggest in the entire game. So you're making all of the targets more vulnerable. Now, if we take away skill expansion on this, you can see what the default of it is. So it looks like this normally, which any target in sign will get the debuff. Unfortunately, it doesn't refresh every single tick, but if they lose the debuff and they're still in the field, it will reapply a new charge. But you can see how long this debuff lasts for, and it makes all of your teammates do more damage. But then we're gonna go ahead and max out the radius on it. Luckily, all you need is a single skill expansion because it can only go to a maximum of 200% expandable range. So once we add in the skill expansion, this is the size of the area. All enemies that cross this threshold or stay inside of this will get the debuff on them for a long period of time. And we can also do skill duration as well to make sure the AoE stays longer. And before this ends, we just stack it again, and now all targets are shredded as well. We can basically keep 100% uptime with this build on all targets, lowering all of their defense. And again, if we use the Excava to lower their electric resistance on top of this, we can make that even stronger. And if we use an Azastrez, we can shred their armor even more on top of everything else to make them even more vulnerable to incoming damage. Next, we'll look at the functionality of your two main weapons, the Excava and the Executor. Both of these weapons are very specific in how they function. So, and you want to know how these are used so you can actually make this work. So with the Excava, especially if you have it fully maxed, like you finish a battle pass and you get it maxed out, you will have a nice combination of rounds. So all you have to do is fire. Do not aim down sights when you're using this weapon. Just fire normally, and you'll see we're gathering up a charge on top of this. The sharp precision shot makes this even easier to build up. When you get to 28 charges, you will get a stack of the passive, and this passive can go up to 3 stacks. You'll notice we just got the seasonal buff there. It lasts 2 seconds. So as soon as we're full up, we can ADS and we can release the bomb. Again, my Excava is not fully upgraded. It is still quite weak. So this can get way stronger on top of that. So we want to make sure we have the debuff going, and we're using the Excava to build up this charge as well. When we hit them with the energy grenade, we're also going to shred some resistance off of them, which is really good. So we get that fully stacked up. And then once you get to 3 stacks, which happens very fast if you have it maxed out, there it goes. We aim and we go boom, we get a big blast on that. Then once you have the shred and you're able to use the energy grenade, or if you have ammo, that's when you want to switch to the Executor, which is the shotgun that was crafted after the Executioner boss. A little bit of lore for you. And all you have to do with this one is that if you land all pellets from the Executors, you want to be close enough to use it. We're also going to be running the Deadeye as well as a Hawkeye on it as well to give it maximum accuracy. You want to be able to make sure that you can land all pellets on the Executor, and when you do, you will get a stack of Executor's Exaltation. When you get to 5 stacks of this, your next shot, so usually I reload this for strengthen first shot, will apply a big fat electrocution buff on it, or debuff tick on there as well. So we got that going on top of them. So what we want to do is, because we're running the strengthen first shot on this, we're just going to want to make sure we have 5 rounds in the chamber, stack up to 5 stacks of this, reload to get the strengthen first shot, unload, and then empty the rest of your ammo and switch back to your Excava in order to try and push through this and stack it. And that's the rotation. It's very simple, very straightforward. Using this, all of this will get amped up. We're also going to have your like electric enhancement on it, on both of these, so we can actually deal with electric damage. We're triggering the electrocution debuff with all of our shots, including other damage. You can even use your other abilities, which have some electric damage on them as well. If you really wanted to, you can use your 1 and your 4 for extra mana cost there, and you can burn these down and get extra damage and then shred as well. Very straightforward. It's a weapons platform, Sharen, with lots of shred and team synergy. And I think if you had a Corrosion Sharen and like a ammo or crit buff Enzo in the party, it's going to make everyone so much stronger and give more overall damage than if you didn't have one of the meta burst DPS characters in this slot. And I think it's really awesome too. You can build this, have an extra build for Sharen for outposts, and you kind of have this really sweet support hybrid DPS role that you can fill with your own damage output as well. Now for this build, I like running shot focus because we don't care about our skill build. We don't care. You can run whatever sub module you want as well. Skill expansion is necessary to get the max range on our big AoE electric as well. And we want enough cooldown reduction to make sure that we can maintain the damage uptime. For this specifically, I think it's perfectly fine to run nimble fingers and time distribution. This gets you to a skill cooldown of 39.9 without reactor, and it gives you some HP in there as well. But if you find that you're not able to maintain the debuff all the time, you can also swap in MP conversion for some more cooldown on that as well. And you want to it frees you up to run a lot of defense as well. So running Battle of Stamina, increased defense, increased HP, as well as running time distribution with the HP on it. And then I also like running auto immunity on this as well. There's like upper limit to how much value you can get from defense to make your character tanky. But if you're on auto immunity, you have damage reduction on top of that, which is nice plus some HP there. And it also is nice, you can run multi-talented as an option here. This one will give you some nice cooldown reduction because you're triggering a dimension skill. You can also get some skill duration by using your 4 or your 1 to trigger it. Gives you a little bit of balance there, but if you don't want to run multi-talented, I think it would be fine to swap in one of the immunities for any of the electric, or like it gets you the debuff immunity, frostbite, electrocution, burn immunity. I have these a couple levels on them to get the immunity and a little bit of resistance if you need to, just to swap that out. Additionally, you can also swap in enlightenment or strong mentality if you feel like you're running out of mana. I haven't found that I have. Just using the shred alone, I never run out of mana. I can use it on cooldown as much as I want. You can also swap in spear and shield for some defense, a little more power if you are using your other abilities, as they will give you some damage output from that as well. For the force set, we are running veteran marksman. You don't really need anything else. I tried the supernova build but for the proc, but it just doesn't proc enough with this build specifically because it needs to be a skill electric source. And then for these, we can run defense max HP, defense max HP on the 4 implicits. And then the rolled stats, we want max HP and fire resist on the auxiliary, chill resist and MP recovery in combat on the sensor, defense and electric resist on the memory, and then max shield and toxic resist on the processor, just to give you the tank that you need. And what I love about builds like this specifically is you can very easily, it frees you up to run a lot more durability. You can get crazy HP, crazy defense, lots of resistance on a build like this, while still doing everything that you need for the build and making other people stronger. And if you think about it, if your shred gets applied to the other 3 people in a forced co-op mode like Gluttony or the upcoming Deathstalker, all of that extra damage that you're generating by shredding the target's defense does get attributed to you, because that extra damage wouldn't have existed if you weren't there as a hybrid DPS/support to provide that for you. And again, because it's not a skill-based build or an elemental build, outside of weapons, you can run any mount on the reactor, any element. It can be fusion, tech, it doesn't really matter, none of those apply. And then you want to get skill duration up and skill cooldown, because again, there's a maximum size of 200% on your 3rd ability, which means that you only need skill expansion. Skill duration up and skill cooldown is all you need on the reactor to be able to build that up. So super cheap, super easy. You will need some catalysts on these. I've put the full build with the most efficient catalyzing on all of these weapons on the screen as well, and you'll find a link to the sheet down below in the comments and in the description. If you found value in today's video, leave a like down below, leave a comment for the algorithm to help this video get seen by more people, and don't forget to check out my other channels for other content and other stuff and other things.